we see thousands of images every day. So for an image to stand out, I think it has to be from a really interesting perspective. So my job is to put myself in these places where all these variables align, the tide, the wind, the swell, the light, all these things align, and I just happen to be there at the right time. And I'm there, almost there, where all these things kind of come into alignment just for a fleeting moment, and I get to lock in with them, and I get to make the image.
One of the hallmarks of artists that have found tremendous momentum is that they have incorporated their art into not just one, but many aspects of their life. Momentum, of course, has a particular look when we start. Our art is just an idea or simply a hobby, but it can become much, much more than that. Your art can become your life. And this kind of momentum can result in powerful, amazing art. I recently came across Jonah Allen, an extraordinary nature photographer primarily focused on the ocean. He makes images depicting the essence of the sea, waves, and light. His work is potent and stirring because of his deep immersion and love of his subject matter. He literally lives and breathes the ocean, swimming and surfing in the day, walking the sandy edges where water and land meet, and at night continues by studying weather patterns, all in pursuit of his photography. This conversation served as a reminder to me of the power of momentum in one's art journey. This happens when an artist goes all in for their art by also incorporating it into their life. Jonah's life and art is a refreshing peek into what our days could be like if we too stepped more fully into what we love. Jonah lives and works in southern Florida, has a gallery and also a new 300-page coffee table book releasing now. To see Jonah's photography and find the show notes with all the links, go to art2life.com and click on podcasts. Welcome to Art2Life, a podcast for the creatively curious. My name is Nicholas Wilton, and each week I'll help you rediscover not just the art of your life, but the art in your life. Join me as we explore that perfect blue at twilight, the wild frontiers of art making, and the extraordinary joy of finding your way as you go. Jonah, listen, thanks so much for joining us today. You're a little ahead of me. You're in Florida, correct?
That is correct. I'm in Northwest Florida.
Okay, so you're 3 hours ahead. Yeah, so just for those of you folks, Jonah's just this amazing photographer. And here's the hit I got, Jonah, just to be straight up. I saw your work. I've never met you before, but I saw your work, and I've spent a lot of time in the ocean. When someone takes a picture of the ocean, they're taking a picture of the ocean. But what you're doing with your photography, to me, feels like you're making photographs that feel like the ocean. And that's really, really different. And once I saw the image and then I started researching kind of, watching videos about what you're doing, I understand how and why and all that. But that's pretty cool, man. I'm really in awe of your work. So I don't know, take us back. Like, how did you get here to photographing the ocean and the light and all the things?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks so much for the kind words. I actually grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm 28 now, but I grew up in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia my whole life. And I always felt like I was out of place, like I never belonged. I just felt like I was not home. I came down to Florida when I was a kid. I vacationed with my family, and I learned to surf probably when I was like 10 or 12 years old. And that completely changed the trajectory of my life because I got completely hooked on surfing, 100% addicted. That led me to just my subconscious always wanted to be in the water and harness that feeling of what it was like to be in the water. And so fast forward to now, I obsessively try to capture the relationship between water and light. And now I have a gallery in Florida, which I'm here right now. So that's a little bit about my history. I went to University of Georgia. I studied art and marketing. And it's really funny because I can't really tell you what I learned from the marketing department of University of Georgia, but I did learn a ton at the art school that really kind of helped me to get to where I am now. But yeah, that's a little bit about my history.
Yeah, and so I get it with surfing and that feeling. For me, when I'm out in the water, doesn't even really matter what happens. There's something about sitting, or swimming in the ocean. I mean, it's super grounding. And what is the feeling for you when you're out there? Like, describe that for people. We might be talking to people that are very, very inland, but what is the feeling? Because it's strong, but I've never really been able to put my finger on it. Your photographs convey this, but
for me, it's all about energy on the surface level, but then on a deeper level, the ocean is where I feel like I'm at home. It makes me feel connected to the sublime, or connected spiritually in a way to the universe or to God or to whatever you want to call it. But on a surface level, energy, a wave, what I capture a lot is our waves and the movement of water. And so if you think about it, a wave is just energy and water is the medium. And so that energy was created thousands of miles away from a storm, which that storm energy was created from the wind, which was really created from the sun. So if you think about it, water is just the medium. The energy is moving through that medium. And so then when you're in the water, in that medium, the waves are moving through you, you're literally harnessing that energy, surfing, and you're toying with energy in one of its rawest forms. And then my attempt as an artist is to try to harness that energy in a photograph and to capture that emotion, because art is all about emotion. And if an image can make you feel something, then it's kind of done its job.
Yeah. It's, what's tricky though, when we take a picture of something that exists, I mean, it just seems more challenging to me because I'm a painter, but a photograph, there's all this realism in it and there's all this stuff that you don't get to change that. But when you can compose it in a certain way, it's a piece of time, a specific piece of time. I mean, the wave pictures that you just get it at that break. It's not breaking, but it's about to show its power. It's like a little before it breaks, I guess that's it. There's the sequence, there's a time element here, but I love that the photograph, some photography can just make you feel differently about a thing that you recognize and see every single day. We drive by the water all the time,
Well, that's awesome if the work can do that. That's the goal, is to change your perception or to change your perspective. Because photography is all about light, composition, and perspective. So if you're, like you said, if you're around something all the time, you see it. But if you can see it in a new way because of a piece of art, then I think that that can be enlightening that changes your perspective.
And what I think is kind of cool is that you actually get in it. Talk about how I know you've used helicopters, you use drones, and talk about the different ways that you interact with your subject. I mean, I love the swimming thing. It's just, that's such a great marriage of like what you love to do and you're in an art form, it's like that just is, it seems so obvious, you love the ocean and then you're in the ocean and then you're documenting it. But talk about the different ways and why you use those ways and what it permits.
Yeah, well, like you said earlier, as a painter, you can create your composition, you can change things, you can add things, you can subtract things. Nowadays with digital photography, you can do that, create photo manipulation, but I'm not really interested in that. I want to take an image that is true to the scene, that is true to what I saw with my own eyes. And so because of that, and because I love photographing the relationship between water and light, I determined that I need to see that from all different perspectives. I need to change my perspective in order to keep the work interesting. So I'm not just shooting the same thing over and over again with the same angle, with the same lens. So I decided a long time ago that right now I'm kind of photographing the relationship between water and light in the ocean from three different perspectives. The first, and where all started, was from the water. So when I'm in the water, I have a housing around my camera so I can control the settings in the camera. And I'm swimming with flippers, or maybe I'm standing in the water. And this type of photography, it's really dynamic because there's so much going on, especially in larger waves. There's so much energy. It can be kind of hard to navigate. And it's really fun. It's really energizing. It can be really, but I make a lot of images. It's kind of like make a lot of images and then edit later. So it's like, I'm not shooting really tight. I'm shooting a lot and then I'll edit down later. And then the second perspective is from the sand. I'm really obsessed with kind of like the organic geometry of the earth, sacred geometry, and just the natural patterns that occur. And so that's one perspective from the sand. And the last perspective is getting up in the air, because as humans, we're confined by gravity. And one of the most important elements of photography is perspective. I had an epiphany like 5 years ago that, with the invention of drones and getting up in helicopters, that you can remove that confinement of gravity, and you can get up and you can create almost any perspective imaginable. So I'd like to get up in the air and shoot from helicopter, which can be really expensive, So a drone is another way around it. But the thing about a drone is like you're removed from the experience. It's really great for low altitude and like precise. If you want to get precision, it can be great. But it's definitely nothing like, being up in the air, hovering above the earth, with the doors off, you're exposed to the elements, you're exposed to the wind, and hanging out of a helicopter. It's pretty exhilarating.
Wow. How much does it cost to get a helicopter to do that? I mean,
it depends. It depends on the pilot, depends on the helicopter, what kind of helicopter, gas, and all those things. But roughly anywhere between $800 to $1,500 an hour.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I don't do that every day. But yeah, I love, any way that I can change my perspective. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm looking for, to capture something that you see every day, but just from a different perspective. Because, photography, everyone's a photographer nowadays. We all photographers with the iPhone, anyone can take an image, and the quality of them is incredible, but, with that. And so we're bombarded with images every day, on Instagram, on social media, advertisements. I mean, we see thousands of images every day. So for an image to stand out, I think it has to be from a really interesting perspective. So my job is to put myself in these places where all these variables align: the tide, the wind, the swell, the light, all these things align. And I just happen to be there at the right time. And I'm almost there, where all these things kind of come into alignment just for a fleeting moment. And I get to lock in with them, and I get to make the image.
Yeah, no, that's totally. That's the exception, not the rule. But I was really close friends with a nature photographer, and first of all, he shot all kinds of flowers, and it was so interesting because he knew where like the golden rhododendrons were blooming. His name's George Ward, actually, and an amazing photographer. You should look him up. But he knew every national park, every preserve, like in the United States, and he knew what was blooming when. And he would go into like the old growth forest to see the rhododendrons, the golden rhododendrons. I mean, it blew me away. And he would go up there in his van, and then he would hike in, and he couldn't stand wind because any wind would blur, But, I knew firsthand from watching him, he'd go for like 2 weeks and he'd get like a couple shots maybe, But he was so happy. Like, the results spoke for themselves. It was just like that, like just this miracle of all things coming together. That's pretty cool. And I get that. I see that with your work. I was curious that if you notice this, I'm sure you do, but especially around the ocean and sand and worn surfaces and sky, that these patterns that we're looking at, like they show up, like I forget how, I don't know if you said universal or whatever, but there's just these patterns that are in the sand, but they're also in the water, and they're also in the sky. Like a cloud looks like water. And do you notice that? I never really think deeply about it, but there's just this, the way energy, the way water wears down a rock is really similar to the way the wind wears down a sand dune. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. If what you just said is like you notice patterns in different places, the similar patterns, and, that's called, it can be called a fractal, which is basically a repeating pattern that's at different scales.
Yes.
And so I'm absolutely obsessed with capturing that, because it is just so interesting to see the movement of energy in the same fashion in different places. Like for instance, photographing the sand, I might photograph a surface area of like 5 feet, right? But with no scale, it's an abstract image, so it looks the way it does. And then you could zoom out, on Google Earth, to that 5,000 feet up, and you could hover in on a desert or sand dunes, and you might see the same exact pattern. So it's just called a fractal. So if anyone wants to do research on that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I don't know what's going on, but, like when we look at the Amazon as it spills into the Pacific or whatever, it looks just like, it reminds me of some of those shots you have of the brackish water spilling into the ocean that's going through, you were talking about how it changes color and those, an estuary, how it spills into the sea and it changes colors. But it's just crazy that nature serves up the same kinds of things. And I know that the hair pattern that we have on our head, and it shows up. It's like the golden mean, it's like that shows up in plant branches and the anatomy, and it kind of makes you feel like there's a bigger force at play here. That's I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. That's what interests me. Like you said, like we said, the golden spiral, the golden ratio. You see it in a snail shell. You see it in a breaking wave. You see it in hair. You can see it, in so many different, flora and fauna around the earth. So I love capturing that 100%.
Yeah. The fact that water has this surface, and that's what we're experiencing, but there's also under the water. And I love that idea that, it's stormy and then it's calm down below. And, I don't know, but I think like water to me feels like a kind of spiritual inquiry just by the very nature that it has a surface, but then it's got a mystery and all this depth to it, and I'm sure that's part of it, but you're in it and you're swimming. Do you ever take shots like under deep down and then looking up, or have you started to explore under the surface? Most of the things I'm seeing are on the surface.
That's a great question. I am certified to scuba dive and dive, and as I get more certifications, I will be able to start exploring that perspective more. But the thing that's challenging about photographing deeper down and under the surface is the further down you go, the less light you have, and light is absolutely essential for photography. So the less light you have, the less color renders well in a photograph. So then you need strobes and you need additional lighting. So I haven't yet kind of, no pun intended, dove into that yet, but it's definitely on my list of things I want to explore. I feel like it's challenging because there's so much I want to do. There's so much I want to explore, but there's just so little time. I don't know if you struggle with that as an artist, or there's so many things that you want to. There's so many projects you have in your mind that you've started. There's just so little time.
That's so funny because I'm actually writing about this very thing this morning, about time and the challenges of it and trying to make sense of it. And it's kind of cool that you're talking about this, but I kind of look at what you're doing and I think, wow, like I love, it's so clear, like it's just, you're just taking pictures of the water, and you go in it and you live next to it and you ride your bike next to it and you love it. And it just all fits so nicely. And I feel like in my practice, I'm chasing so many things. So to hear that you're really stressed for time or just you got many things you want to chase. We all do. I guess that's what artists do, but it just seems so clear, your path to me. Like you could just do this. Like what's coming up for you? What are you excited about? Like what are the things that if you had a little more time, where do you want to go with some of these things?
Oh man, there's so much. There's two main sides of me, like two main drives. It's making artwork and then there's surfing. So balancing those two things, I'm an avid surfer. I love to surf. And so where I live, I don't get waves that often because I live in the Gulf of Mexico. So it's kind of fickle. It's really challenging to surf here. So I love traveling. Last year I spent about 5 months traveling. Balancing traveling and making work and maintaining my own gallery and sales and marketing, it's a lot. But to answer your question, I'm about to launch a book. Been working on for 4 years. It's only an aerial photographic book, so it's solely from the air. It's about nearly 300 pages long, and it's just focusing on a local coastline here in Florida, a geological formation called a coastal dune lake, and they're endangered. They're really rare, and so I'm trying to raise awareness about them in my local community and hopefully drive some action from our government to put some protections in place. So I look at it as kind of 3 marathons. Like the first marathon is making the work, shooting the work over the course of 4 years. The second marathon is assembling the book, and I'm self-publishing. And so the third marathon, which I'm literally about to begin, is selling and marketing the work. So as soon as I have that project kind of wrapped up, I already have a couple other books in the works of different series that I really want to kind of continue working on. But then there's also surf trips. I mean, to be honest, there's a place in the world that I'm dying to go, in the Mentawai Islands in Indonesia. So I'm dying to go there.
Wow. Where are those in relationship to Bali? Is it kind of out in that corner, or is it more towards Sumatra?
It's off the coast of Sumatra.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So much further north than Bali.
What are the islands called again?
The Mentawai Islands. I could be pronouncing them incorrectly, but yeah, Mentawai, I believe, Mentawai.
Is it like a point, or is it just no one's there and it's just got amazing waves, or what?
It's one of the most wave-rich places on the planet with different reefs. It's all reefs. There's so many variables that go into making a wave a wave. There are so many things. Just with me making the photos, it's the tide. It's the wind direction, it's the swell size, the swell direction, the bathymetry, the shape of the reef, the shape of the sand, the shape of the rock. And so this particular place receives swell year round, and it just has, it's literally a playground for surfers.
God, wow.
So that's a place I'd love to go. Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
I've done a lot of traveling, and I've been through Indonesia, and I want to go back, and it just filled me, man. I get so excited when I'm just seeing new things and going new places. And I can't imagine for you, you're just in the water, and then it would be hard, I would imagine, to just not have a camera with you. You're just seeing these amazing moments from surfing. But that's really great that you're still, you're designing your life around what you love to do. And then that's fueling your inspiration, which supports what you love to do. And just a really cool thing that, it's so clearly can bring awareness to such an endangered, delicate preserve, the ocean. It's just in so much need of being paid attention to. So that's really great. Do you do a lot of sort of benefit kind of work, I would imagine?
I wouldn't say I do a lot, but I partner with a local organization who does water quality research on the waterways that I'm photographing. So I'm taking kind of a local approach, just trying to, I've raised money for this nonprofit. And so when I launch this book, a percentage of the proceeds will be going to that nonprofit as well, because they do direct research in my community on these lakes and the waterways that I'm actually, enjoying and experiencing. But as I grow, 100% want to continue, being able to give more and more with time.
Yeah, that's really great. It's one, sometimes I feel, in making my work, I think it, it's my own unique thing, but it sometimes feels like it's separate from the real serious things, the environmental issues, and obviously you can donate things and do things, but I just love how what you make and the form of the book is so powerful. That seems like you could just create books now, and just sort of the Andy Goldsworthy model. His work is just in all these wild places that none of us could probably ever go, but you can buy a coffee table book and just really experience it. That's such a good form, especially for you,
Yeah, that's definitely the goal, to continue. We're about to publish my first one, but continue publishing, books every couple of years. It just suits the medium of photography. Any art form, really well, painting or photography. It just is such a great way to get your work out there to people who don't know it in the physical format, because we live in such a digital age. And I love the digital age. I think the age we live in right now, I'm 28 years old. There is no way that I would be able to do what I'm doing if it wasn't for this era we live in with the internet at our fingertips, with social media, with being able to harness attention. It's absolutely incredible to live in this age.
Yeah.
However, with everything so digital, it's really nice to have things in print too, and to actually see an image or to see a painting on a 2x2 little iPhone screen, right? And then to see it in print in a book or in person and the real thing. I mean, you're moving from an experience, like a 2D experience, to a literal physical experience.
Yeah.
And it completely changes your relationship with the work. It completely changes how you feel as well. Oftentimes when people come into the gallery here, they see the work, they've seen it on the screens, but when they come in, they're just like, they're taken aback because of the physicality of it and the scale of it. It just completely changes your experience.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing that you took the step to represent yourself and I mean, to like get a gallery. Has it been this path that you're doing, this where you're going and where what you're taking on? Like, I know there's not a lot of people, that's not the normal thing. Was it hard? Did you have to do a bunch of dumb, frustrating kinds of work or things that didn't fulfill you? Or, I mean, it just seems like you were just so clear early.
That's a great question. I mean, it's definitely been really difficult. I mean, it's taken many years for me to get to this point. I've been grinding away. Like, I sacrificed, if you think about life as a stovetop, right? And that's the metaphor, as a stovetop. You have maybe 5 to 7 areas of your life. You have your health, you have your spirituality, you have how you make money, you have your relationships and friendships, and you have your hobbies. And so I'm not making this metaphor up. I heard this from somebody else. I can't remember who. But, in order to be successful in any business, you have to probably have to turn off one. And then to be successful faster, you probably have to turn off 2, if not 3. So for me, well, first I think it's important to define your definition of success. So for me, success is really freedom. The freedom to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want, and how I want. And in order to have that freedom, you definitely have to have some financial freedom. And so that's my definition of freedom. And I realized that, I'm definitely going to have to sacrifice some things. So what I did in my early 20s was I didn't turn off my health. I turned off friendships and relationships. When I say turned off, I mean really minimized it, like really kind of, so because I was working part-time, right? Trying to do the art hustle on the side. So I cut off that and I cut out my other hobbies. And I don't do that now. And now I'm in a place where I can introduce those things back into my life and have a little more balance in my life. But, I think anyone, no matter what path you're taking, whether you're, a doctor or a hedge fund manager or where you're an artist, you have to sacrifice things and you just have to be clear on, what you want. And I knew that I wanted freedom, and I just felt like being an artist was the way to craft the lifestyle I wanted, to be by the water, to surf, so I just feel like my work and my life are integrated, where they're not separate. It's just like it's all one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is so great. Seriously, that's a powerful thing, and it's something that I work with artists on all the time, to integrate it. I was just I was doing an interview, and the artist I was talking to was saying she has 2 projects, two passions or 2 jobs or whatever. She's becoming an artist, but she's also like a trainer and has a whole fitness thing. And she's like, and I've never really combined them. The people that I train, they don't know I'm an artist. And, she was saying, and for whatever, it's scary to do that kind of, man. And I was saying, man, when you bring all this under one roof, it's powerful when you got everything, coordination, and everyone's rowing in the same direction. It's really, really strong. And you can make much more headway, in trying to, instead of setting up these artificial, well, this world is here and this world is here. And, I think the idea of just being the artist, and that affects your life and that affects your art, and those 2 things inform each other. I mean, the whole Art2Life platform is that, and I just, what you're saying is, it's just really interesting, because I hear this from so many kinds of artists. It doesn't even matter what the thing is you're making, but that seems to be a common trait to momentum. And I too, and I think that I've missed a lot of movies, believe it or not. That's where I really notice it, because I worked so hard. I was like you. I mean, I worked so hard, and I don't know if I had to work as hard as I did, but I've missed a lot of movies because I'm in conversation with people and they're talking about things, and I'm like, I didn't see that,
Right.
So I don't even know. I mean, I guess it's okay, but you're right. I mean, I think I don't know if I believe you got to turn off all this stuff, but you say no to more things, but that's the price of admission, and then you can dial it in, and I think you're hitting that right now, like anybody who's taken off any amount of time you got it going on. The fact that you're getting to go for a few months is it's pretty damn successful in my book.
Yeah, well, I think going back to the movie thing, I mean, I can totally relate where I'm totally missing shows, TV, like I don't even know what people are talking about in a conversation. Yeah. But for me, I have no problem with that. Like I'm pretty intense. I'm a pretty intense person. It's funny because my girlfriend and I, this is a kind of a conflict a little bit, but my attitude. And if you watch TV, I'm going to preface this. If you watch TV and you watch movies and you love it and you get enjoyment out of it, that's awesome. I'm not bashing you. But for me, I don't have any interest in watching TV or watching movies all the time. A movie here and there, awesome. It changes your perspective. It inspires you. It's like a piece of art, It can literally change your state. It can connect you to your emotions. But if you're watching, for my personal opinion is like, if I'm watching TV, a movie or TV every day, it's like that time adds up and it compounds. Like, an hour a day for 365 days. I mean, that's 365 hours. What can you do with 365 hours, right? Think about a trip. Think about a collection of art that you could produce. And I'm not saying you can't have any rest time. And if TV is your rest time, that's great. But for me, it's like there's this book actually that really changed my life, that really helped me. And I wanted to give it to everybody. I think everyone should read it.
Oh my God, I want to hear.
It's it's on this kind of principle too. It's called The Slight Edge. I think the author is Jeff Olson. But the principle of The Slight Edge is that every day we make daily decisions, simple daily decisions in all facets of our life. The stovetop, right? So you have, your career, your finances, spirituality, your friendships, your health, your personal development, all the main 5 to 7 areas of your life. And every day we make simple daily decisions that either are going to compound over time in a positive direction to create exponential growth, or they are going to compound negatively in exponential decline. And the thing is, like, these decisions, they're simple. They're easy to do. They're easy not to do. A super simple example is like, if you were to eat something from a fast food restaurant every single day, right? It's going to compound. It's going to catch up to you. You're not going to see the results in the beginning, but over time, it's going to create, negative decline in your health. But whereas if you put in every single day, you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to work on my art business. I'm going to work on my craft. I'm going to work on my craft for 3 hours a day. And then the other 2 hours, I'm going to work on the marketing and this kind of the business side of it. And you do that every day, that is going to compound over time, and it's going to lead to exponential growth. So that's kind of what the book is about. It's about the slight edge of continuing that exponential growth. And the beautiful thing is, at any point in time, we can either step on the train to exponential growth, or we can step off to exponential decline. You can, you can waver. You know what I mean? And just because of what you did yesterday doesn't mean you can't make a better decision today.
That's a great idea, and I love it because it's proactive. It's not you're creating your life. You're not just letting things happen to you, being blown around off course, and that's really great. I think about that a lot, actually, about the decisions, and it's a curation. That's how I think about it. Like, and little steps towards the big thing that you want, and like I'm really busy. Right now I'm really, really busy, but I always try to have time to read. It seems crazy, but even 20 minutes, it's like, I'm telling you, that 20 minutes gives me more ideas. I mean, I can't believe the stuff I find in 20 minutes. And I used to never do this because I didn't have an hour. I didn't have 2 hours. But little and often is my life now. I just move towards shit. And it's actually creates momentum. I mean, that's the edge, is that you feel like you're engaged in something that is leading to something, and that gives you hope. That keeps you, it reminds you of the bigger idea that you're chasing. And, I imagine even like for you going surfing, but that's just is like completely reinforces everything you're doing. But yeah, that's really cool. That's really, really great to think of it like stepping away from the painting. You get to see a different perspective, seeing the long view, like what do these habits create in 2 years, in 1 year? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's all about the long view. And what you just said actually is literally I'm pretty sure it's one of the principles in the book, or to read 15 to 20 minutes a day, because it completely changes your perspective. And before I was a full-time artist, and I was super busy, I didn't make the time to read, but now I, just like you, read 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes a day. And it is so important because it continues our learning. I mean,
right.
You can only learn, in 3 main ways. You can learn from failure yourself, you can learn from books, or you can learn from other people, mentors and coaches. So reading for me, has been life-changing. So profound to read and to gather information to then put it into action.
Yeah. God, it's just crazy, what I'm learning. And it's really has a lot to do with this podcast, because I'm talking to different kinds of artists all the time now. I get to go a little deeper, which I super love. But here's another thing that I'm realizing. And this is something that I cultivated in myself that I like. I'm seeing it again and again and again, that artists, they're coachable, like they're into learning new stuff, like that's a quality. I mean, you're like, I'm not going to do TV, but you and I have a similar thing. It's like, you need to be turned on to new things, and that just helps everything. Like that's part of it. And that's not always the thing that people have in their life. Like being a learner is kind of synonymous with being an artist. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we have to learn as an artist. I mean, we're always, I can't speak for everyone, but myself, I always want to keep improving my craft. Like that's the most important thing, is to keep going deeper and to stay inspired, to not get stale, and to just keep the momentum going on the creation side. Because from there, everything else kind of stems from there. All the sales, all the marketing, all the, the lifestyle, it's all based on, just trying to stay in that kind of flow, to stay inspired.
Yeah. Yeah. So take me, like, you're going to go shoot in the ocean. Like, what does that feel like? You get up in the morning. I mean, like, are there certain conditions you're looking for? And is it exciting? Is it scary? Is it sometimes, take me through what that would be like. Yeah.
Well, just like you mentioned your friend, how he knows when the certain types of flowers are blooming. That's, for me, I'm almost like, I'm a meteorologist, basically. I mean, between waves, looking at wave forecasts and looking at the weather forecast, I'm always, every night, I look at the weather. What is the wind direction going to be? What is it going to look, what is the sun doing? Cloud cover, swell direction, all the things, all the variables, looking at it before I go to bed.
Wow, I love that.
And I decide, okay, I think, and then I have an idea of like, okay, I think this is what it's going to be in the morning. And based on that, this is the series I'm going to work on. Like maybe it might get in the water, or maybe if I know these variables are going to lead to really cool sand patterns, which is tide dependent. And I'm looking at the tides, like, okay, I think this is going to happen. So then I wake up, kind of pre-sunrise. I used to set an alarm. Sometimes I set an alarm if I'm too afraid that I'm not going to wake up. But honestly, I've been going to bed I go to bed 8:15, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I wake up naturally, pre-sunrise.
Wow.
If time permits, if I wake up early enough before sunrise, I'll have a cup of coffee. If there's not enough time, the sun's about to rise, then I head down to the beach and get an eye on it, because the reports can tell you anything, but there's nothing like actually seeing it and seeing the physical evidence of what is happening right now. And so I live about 100, 200 steps away from the beach, and so I hop on my bike, camera gear, tripod if I'm going to do sand work, but if I'm going to do water work, I'll put my camera in a housing. It goes in a protective case, put a wetsuit on if it's cold, flippers, all that kind of stuff. And then I'll go down there and get a look. Yeah, if I'm going to photograph it in the ocean, it's not really, I don't really get scared, but I guess I do a little bit. I take it back. I have a little bit of fear. I'm so comfortable surfing, but swimming is a different story because in January of 2019, I was actually hit by a shark. And when I say hit, I mean like most people say it was an attack. It wasn't an attack. It was an investigative bite. It was very murky water. I was surfing. It came.
Dude, that's great.
It hit me. It bit my board. It let go. It didn't come back. That's not an attack. An attack's when it comes back. But ever since then, when I'm swimming, and especially when it's foggy, I'm aware,
Yeah.
And I can definitely trust my intuition. I know my body tells me when I have a shark sense, and I just trust it. And when I have the shark sense, I go in. But honestly, most people don't ever have to worry about sharks,
No, I know. But I mean, I haven't actually talked to someone who had would you call it a shark walk by or something?
No, it hit me. It bit my board.
A hit.
Yeah.
Whoa, man.
But it didn't luckily I put my feet up. It didn't get my feet. But yeah, so back to the process, like I'm in the water, I'm photographing. If the conditions are good, like I will literally, if the conditions are good for surfing or photographing, I will stay photographing until the conditions stop being good. And
wow.
Like I'll be out there for 6 hours. I love those days when you just kind of get lost in the process. But if I'm photographing the sand, it's much kind of a slower process. I have a tripod and I'm working really slowly. I have an electric bike. Actually, the electric bike has been a really awesome kind of extension to my toolkit because what it allows me to do is it can go on the beach. And so it extends my radius, my range, so I can go explore different locations really easy on the bike. And then if I'm chartering a helicopter, that's usually premeditated. Usually I'm making the call the day before.
You gotta plan that.
I'll look at the weather, look at the forecast, and I'll call the helicopter company and say, hey, I want to go up tomorrow at, let's take off at 6 a.m.
Yeah. You don't have people in your pictures too much.
No, not too much. I have, some people can be interesting sometimes, I think, because it gives a scale, to a landscape or to a seascape. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I am just, it doesn't evoke what I'm trying to create. Because when I'm out in the ocean and I'm there, one of my favorite things is to be out in the ocean and surfing the landscape alone, and I don't see anybody, and it reiterates how small I am. Yeah. And it just shows me my scale, my perspective. And so I'm trying to make images that are almost like a window into the sublime, a window into like these serene moments. And if there are people in the photos, that can still evoke that serenity and that peacefulness and that calmness. But for me, most of the time, if people are in the photo, it kind of subtracts from that connection. Yeah,
and that view that you're the person. I mean, I'm the person in the picture when I experience your pictures because I'm looking out of your eye, but that feels like I'm there and doing that. So there's a feeling of myself in the work more easily, perhaps. That's fantastic. Well, listen, Jonah, man, it just super inspiring, and I just love how you've integrated your art and your life and everything. It's really inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. I know it's, as artists, at least for me speaking, like I have my own, I'm a lone wolf. You know what I mean? I have I have an assistant, but it's just me doing my thing. So it's really important to connect with other artists and other, community. So I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah. If you ever get out here, there's a place up here called Drake's Beach. And so I've surfed and spent a lot of time, surfing. And there's this place called Drake's Beach. And it is unlike the wave there because of the rock bottom. I mean, I just, I know you know this, but there's just certain qualities to the water and the waves in these different places. And so if you ever come here, it's the most glassy, thin, like a thin, really, really fast breaking, hollow little wave that I've never seen anywhere else. So if you ever get up here, you're going to have to come. It's freezing ass cold, and there's sharks too, a little bit. But I think I'll have to take you there.
Count me in. Yeah, I'm in. Count me in.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Art2Life show. If you enjoyed the podcast, please help me get the word out by sharing it with your friends on Instagram at Art2Life_world. The recording of this and all episodes, along with a place to leave comments, see additional photos, and discover a whole new approach to making art, can be found by going to Art2Lifepodcast.com. And secondly, if you could leave a rating and review in whatever app you're listening on today, I would super, super appreciate it. It makes a big difference. And last but not least, before you go, if you'd like to be on my artist list, every Sunday morning I send out a video blog all about art making. Go to Art2Lifepodcast.com to sign up. And all these links are in the show notes, of course. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.